There are moments when the hum of a city feels like a tide pulling at your skin, an unrelenting presence that neither invites nor rests. You might find yourself retreating in your mind to quiet places, imagining the slow sway of tall grasses, the scent of earth after rain, or the delicate chorus of birdsong as dawn breaks. Perhaps this is not merely a preference, but a whisper from something deeper inside, a quiet alignment with a world less tangled, less hurried. It is an invitation to pause and listen to what stirs beneath the noise. This video is for those who feel an invisible pull away from urban streets, toward open fields and quiet skies. If you've ever felt this without quite knowing why, this conversation is for you. Take a moment with me, and if it feels right, consider staying around to reflect on these thoughts as they unfold. When we think about the choice between city life and the countryside, a common belief often arises. The countryside is where life slows down, becomes simpler, more grounded. It is a sanctuary from the rush and clamor of urban existence. At first glance, this idea feels entirely reasonable. After all, cities demand constant engagement. The buzz of traffic, the crowd's footfalls, flashing screens, and ceaseless motion. In contrast, the countryside offers space to breathe and time to be. It's no surprise that many find emotional relief in this slower rhythm. But beyond the surface, what makes this belief emotionally comforting for so many people? It is tied to a deep-seated human need for restoration. Our brains are wired to balance stimulation with calmness, to find equilibrium between complexity and simplicity. The city presents endless stimuli, lights, sounds, demands on attention, that can wear down our cognitive and emotional resources. In the quiet, we feel a chance to reclaim ourselves. What nobody talks about is how this preference for rural life often carries layers of meaning far beyond mere environment. It is not just a desire to escape noise, but a fostering of inner space that feels increasingly rare in modern life. It is a response to sensory overload and social density. Yes, but also a call to reconnect with something more elemental, more rooted in time and nature cycles. Imagine your mind as a vast garden. The city can feel like a garden packed with towering buildings, narrow pathways, and bright, intrusive lights that never dim. There are countless plants, flowers bursting with color and scent, but the soil beneath them is compacted, the roots confined. The countryside, by contrast, is a wide-open field. The soil here is dark and fertile, open to deep roots and slow growth. Here, flowers bloom with time and space enough to grow strong and wild. This garden metaphor helps clarify the experience. The countryside allows your internal landscape to expand without pressure, offering a nurturing environment to flourish. Now, you might be thinking that choosing the countryside over the city is simply about avoiding discomfort or difficulty. It might feel like settling for less excitement or opportunity. This is a common assumption, but deserves a gentle reconsideration. Preferring quiet and space is not about avoidance, but about honoring a kind of comfort that nurtures well-being, not a withdrawal born of fear or inability. Comfort here does not mean hiding. It means conserving energy to engage meaningfully when it matters, to listen deeply to oneself. This distinction is nuanced but vital. Comfort can be a refuge for recharging rather than just a place to hide. In psychological terms, this reflects a balanced regulation of stress and relaxation cycles. The nervous system seeks homeostasis, and the countryside often provides the conditions that enable this balance naturally. It is not about fear of the city or social anxiety, though those can coexist. It is more about a measured choice that respects personal rhythms and internal needs. Let me share a quiet story. A woman I once knew moved from a bustling metropolis to a small village surrounded by fields. At first, her friends worried she was giving up on chances or missing out on excitement. Yet, she described how the mornings in her new home felt like a gentle unfolding. The sound of wind through leaves replaced ambulance sirens, and she found clarity in the slower pace. Her thoughts deepened, her worries softened. The city, she realized, had captured her attention without letting her truly see or feel. In the countryside, she found room to breathe, not just physically but emotionally and mentally. What nobody talks about is how these preferences reveal larger patterns beyond individual choice. Our modern world, heavily centered on urbanization, digital engagement, and rapid information flow, often neglects the human need for natural rhythms and restorative space. Rather than a personal shortcoming or failure, the longing for countryside simplicity is a systemic reflection of how modern life shapes our well-being. This is not about right or wrong choices, but about recognizing how environments impact psychological balance. This idea also invites us to reconsider a common belief that equates progress and success with urban living. Cities symbolize opportunity, innovation, and connectivity, elements many deeply value. Yet, valuing these traits does not mean one must forego the profound solace and grounding that rural life offers. The two are not mutually exclusive, but exist on a spectrum of human experience and need. Returning to the garden metaphor, think about the times when your internal garden feels overcrowded, plants tangled and wilting under harsh lights that never dim. The city's relentless pressure, though alive with possibility, can feel like a storm that disrupts growth. The countryside provides shelter from this storm, a place where the roots can deepen quietly in the embrace of earth warmed by the sun's steady rise and fall. This shift in perspective invites two revelations. First, that our environment is intimately tied to our mental and emotional states, and that choosing a place to live is also an act of choosing how we want to relate to ourselves. Second, recognizing the value in this choice can remove the judgment that sometimes sneaks in when others question preference for rural living as less ambitious or too slow. What might feel like societal pressure is, in fact, a cultural story that does not have to define your inner experience. Psychologically, what happens when someone prefers the countryside can be traced to how their nervous system responds to stimuli. Urban environments often trigger higher baseline levels of arousal. For some, this leads to chronic stress or mental fatigue, even if it feels normal. The countryside, with its slower pace and natural sounds, helps engage the parasympathetic nervous system, the part responsible for rest, digestion, and recovery. It slows down the flood of adrenaline and cortisol, allowing thoughts to settle and emotions to balance. This is not to romanticize rural life as perfectly restful. The countryside can also hold challenges. Solitude can feel isolating. Nature can be unpredictable. But the key difference is the presence of choice and the alignment with inner rhythms. Choosing the countryside is choosing to align with a different kind of pace and presence, one that honors the quiet interplay of mind and body. It might help to think about this through the lens of a slow river meandering through a landscape. Unlike a rushing mountain torrent that commands attention and forces change rapidly, a slow river invites you to observe, to reflect, and to move alongside its current without haste. The countryside preference is like this river, a gentle flow that creates space for thoughtful presence. Returning to the garden, this slow river waters the roots steadily rather than pounding them with rapid currents. This metaphor holds another layer too. Sometimes the river may appear stagnant or slow to an outside observer, but in truth, its subtle movements nurture deep growth beneath the surface. This reminds us that slowing down does not equate to stagnation. Instead, it is often a sign of deep, ongoing internal cultivation. What does this mean for you? Instead of judging your inclination toward quieter, more natural spaces as a weakness or an escape, you might consider, what does this preference reveal about how my mind and body seek balance? How can I honor this need without feeling caught between external expectations and internal rhythms? It is encouraging to acknowledge that this preference for the countryside is not a failure or an escape, but a valid expression of human diversity in how we relate to our environment and ourselves. Sometimes the greatest strength lies in listening to this call and gently following it. If this reflection has resonated with you in any way, it might help someone else to hear these thoughts as well. There's a subtle power in realizing that what you seek has been quietly shared by many before, a thread woven through the modern weave of human experience. And if you find yourself curious about how seasonal preferences also shape our minds and behaviors, you might enjoy exploring the psychology behind people who prefer summer to winter. It continues this conversation about how natural rhythms influence who we are. In the end, choosing the countryside over the city is less about place and more about presence. It is an invitation to befriend your own pace, to cultivate a garden of inner calm, and to honor the slow river flowing within you. What parts of your inner landscape might you be ready to nurture more deeply today?